We just mentioned this in the last video. Of course, the NFL season kicked off last Thursday with the defending Super Bowl champions led by Patrick Mahomes, the Golden Boy, league MVP, going up against the new Detroit Lions. Hopefully, not the same old Lions. And as it seems right now, they are not the same old Lions as they beat the Chiefs 21-20 in Kansas City.
Yeah, a fun game, a crazy game to watch all the way through. It had a lot of emotions going on throughout, especially depending on which team you're rooting for. There were some ups and downs, downs by the end of it for Kansas City. One thing that we have to talk about before we get in here into the stats here is that, of course, they were missing Kelsey and Chris Jones, but I don't think that we can hold that against the Lions. They played the team that was put in front of them, so I'm just going to put that out there first, and then we'll get into the stat lines. How did Detroit do it? Jared Goff goes 22 for 35, 253 yards, one touchdown, no interceptions. He actually is third in NFL history for the most consecutive passes thrown without a pick, with like 359 right now, I think. I think the Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers have set records above him that he could end up passing. We'll see how long it takes for Goff to throw another pick, but kind of crazy to think about Jared Goff being up there like that. David Montgomery leads Detroit on the ground with 21 carries, 74 yards, and what would be the game-winning touchdown. Rookie Jahmyr Gibbs was touted as going to be used in a way that we had never seen before, and he didn't do much. He did well when he was on the field, but the coaches had him on the sideline a lot. I'm not really sure what they meant by that, but Montgomery, maybe it's because of how many carries he had, did still end up having a decent game. Josh Reynolds and Amon-Ra St. Brown shined in the receiving core. Reynolds got 80 yards in the air, and then St. Brown got 71 and a touchdown. The opening touchdown of the NFL season for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Pretty fun. And then rookie Brian Branch got a 50-yard pick six against Patrick Mahomes. We will dive more into that in a little bit because as much as I would love, I'm not a Patrick Mahomes hater. He just gets a lot of love. It's fun sometimes when not overhyped, but when super hyped players make mistakes. But we'll get into why that pick six might not really be a Mahomes issue in a little bit. Speaking of Mahomes, he goes 21 for 39, 226 yards, two touchdowns, that one aforementioned pick, and actually led the Chiefs in rushing with 45 yards. The receiving game was a little rough. Kelsey's absence definitely shined. No Chiefs receiver broke 50 yards. The highest was I think 48, and there wasn't much going on there. But Rashi Rice and Blake Bell both scored touchdowns, so it wasn't a dead receiving core. It was just kind of little more mediocre than we might expect a Patrick Mahomes offense to be. And then Brian Cook recovered a Marvin Jones fumble, and now we get into what you've probably already seen everywhere. Kadarius Toney sure had a football game. Um, a lot of drop passes, not a very good stat line for him. And one of those drop passes would be one that was perfectly into his hands that he essentially like volleyball served to Brian Branch, which would end up being that 50-yard pick six. Beautiful pass by Patrick Mahomes. This is one of the rough things about interceptions is that sometimes they shouldn't really count against the quarterback, but it is what it is. It can't count as a fumble because Tony never had possession of it, but he does pretty much give away that pick six, and he has a few more drop passes later on in the game. On some questionable coaching decisions, we'll get into that later. And Jawan Taylor on site watching the game, if you don't pay enough attention, looked like he had a really good game, shutting down the super aggressive Aiden Hutchinson, who was trying his best to get to Patrick Mahomes and bring him down. But Taylor essentially jumped the snap every single play and just wasn't really called for it. So Aiden Hutchinson had a pretty good game, but had a little bit going against him. Now there were opportunities even with the way Taylor jumped to the line for Hutchinson to get past him. So I mean, there's still a good job by the Chiefs O line, but maybe a little bit of criminal activity there for Jawan Taylor.
Yeah, and really late in the game, he did finally get called for it. It was on that 4th and 20, which led to a 4th and 25. So ironically, I mean, when it does get called, because we've seen guys do this, more and more often now, but I don't think I've really seen it be that egregious in a game before. I remember Chris Collinsworth basically saying he was out there playing slot receiver with how he was lined up. And coming from a receiver in Chris Collinsworth, that's pretty funny. But yeah, this game started out kind of interesting, right? So both teams punted in their first few drives, nothing really getting going for either team. And then Detroit gets a really long drive after they go for it on 4th and 2 on their own 17. And my first thought was thinking, because whenever they came out with punt formation, I'm like, okay, they're obviously going to punt here. My thought was before that, what if Dan Campbell is nutty enough to go for it? But I didn't think they would do a fake punt like that. But they caught him there, got enough yards to be able to get through, and then the offense just really did really well all the way down the field. 17-yard passes here and there. I mean, it was a really good offensive display on that drive, and that's the thing about this game too. The Lions only had 2 touchdown drives offensively. Obviously, the pick six is how they got their other touchdown, and those were the best drives by far outside of the drive where they fumbled, because they got all the way down inside the red zone for KC, and then they fumbled, got recovered by Kansas City, and that was opportunity missed. But outside of those 2 drives where they scored touchdowns, I mean, the offense for the Lions really didn't look all that good either, which is kind of interesting. It looked for the most part a completely different offense, between the drives where they went down and scored, and then the other drives where they didn't. So I don't know what exactly was up with that. I mean, the Chiefs defense, excuse me, is really really young. I didn't realize how young they were. Obviously, Tyrann Matthews not there anymore. They got a lot of the guys that they had before are gone. Chris Jones was up there chilling, watching the game. Whether if he had played or not, we don't if it would have made a difference. Probably would have had more pressure on Jared Goff earlier on, and would have been able to get some sacks. Maybe not. We don't know. Definitely though, Travis Kelsey had played, I think that probably would have made more of a difference because the receiving was obviously a bigger issue for the Chiefs than the pass rush. So yeah, I'd say Chris Jones obviously would have had an impact. That's why they just paid him this afternoon. But yeah, and then just moving in to later, the Chiefs did get another touchdown, and that was see a lot of the same stuff from Patrick Mahomes, running around doing all this crazy foolishness that we kind of just gotten accustomed to at this point. He's entering his, I think, 7th season now. So he's in his prime, exactly in his prime. It's really no surprise to see Patrick Mahomes play well. I just didn't realize that Kansas City receiving core, because we talked a little bit about it whenever we did our preview. I just didn't really think it was going to be like that because I completely forgot that McCall Harmon was there either. So Juju left, Harmon's left. Obviously, Tyreek has been gone for a year, and Travis Kelsey not playing. So you didn't really have a whole lot going on. You would have thought Kadarius Toney would have been the guy to kind of step up there, after he had been chirping a whole lot with Giants fan all off season. Still doing it after the game last night, and he had a bad game, man. It I'll throw it back to you, but it was rough. Um, that first one, obviously, like you said, he volleyballed the ball back to the defender, got a pick six, and that very well could have been the difference in the game. And then really late in the game, it was that last drive for the Chiefs. It was first down actually at the 45 after the Lions turned it over. You would have thought because the Chiefs had it on their own 45, Lions just turned it over on downs. It's like 2 minutes left in the game, 2.5 minutes actually. They got their timeouts too. You would have thought, okay, that's a dagger. And somehow they end up in 4th and 25. And it started with an incomplete pass to Tony right through his hands again. So can't blame the receivers entirely. Obviously, you can't just blame one single group for losing the football game, but the lion's share of the blame definitely has to go to the Chiefs receivers there.
Lion's share is an ironic way to put that one. I've talked before on this show how stat lines can be deceiving. You look at a box score and it's not going to tell you the whole story. And realistically, this one is the same. But when you look at the Chiefs receiving on the box score, you'll see 2 names at the bottom, Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. And that is the story of that 4th and 25 situation. Comes out to be these 2 guys. So Kadarius Toney, first of all, his full stat line is like 5 targets, 1 reception, 1 yard, a few drops. Not a great time. Sky Moore, 3 targets, 0 receptions, 0 yards. Nothing going on for him there either. Moore did pick up 4 yards on a rush, So not an empty day for him, but not the best day either. What happens here is it's a bit of a weird coaching decision, and it's a very Andy Reid coaching decision, and it makes sense, especially to me if we're playing like the old Lions or something like that. But what happens is they have that first down, it goes through Tony's hands, and we end up going a little further back, and go, incomplete pass like that is nothing crazy to think about as a on first down. You got 2 minutes, you got all your timeouts, clock stopped because the pass is incomplete. It's okay. Um, then it looks like it's going to go really good. They actually get a 17-yard pass to Sky Moore, except there was holding, so it comes back. Now we're in a bad position. Now we're at 2nd and 20. But surely this is Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. It's okay, right? No. On 2nd and 20, there's a drop pass from Sky Moore again. Rashee Rice will then get an incomplete pass. I don't think he dropped that one on 3rd and 20. Now it's 4th and 20. And you got to think, what do we get? We have all our timeouts, 2 minutes. We're down one. We can get it to the Lions and do something there with our timeouts and try to get the ball back. But that ain't what the Chiefs want to do. They want to get down and deliver a dagger. It's very Chiefs of them. So they line up, and then that's when Jawan Taylor is finally called. Now it's a 4th and 25, and now you're thinking, man, surely that's enough. Like we're gonna do something else.
Right.
That is not what happens. They go for it again. They drop a pretty good play. I can't lie. I mean, it looks like a really good intended play, and it actually goes to one of the receivers who had a decent game already. It goes to Justin Watson, a decent game by the standards of this game. At this point, he had 3 targets, 2 catches for 45 yards, and this one goes right off his hands on 4th and 25, and that's it. They turn it over on downs, and the Lions are able to bleed out the clock. They just kind of let it go, and that's it for the Chiefs. They lose 21-20 as Dan Campbell is able to hold his team against Andy Reid's time management. So for me, I think I see this from the Chiefs' perspective when they started it. I'm like, okay, you have Patrick Mahomes, you've got Kadarius Toney, despite how bad he's been this game. You've got MVS, you've got Justin Ross, a young receiver. You've got talented receivers that could maybe make something work. You just need a field goal. And you've got Harrison Butker who can definitely deliver if you can just get there. But as the drive went on, I'm thinking, man, I don't know. And then they go for it on 4th and 20. I'm like, I really don't know if I feel good about this for the Chiefs. And it gets penalized. And I'm like, surely Andy Reid rethinks this. But they go for it, and it ends up being what kills them. I wouldn't say that alone sends them home, but you do have to think about that they were only a point behind. And I mean, the defense hadn't been horrible. The Lions only had a few good drives the whole game. So it was a good game for sure. But it wasn't a good game in like the old Jared Goff, Patrick Mahomes game where it was 50-50. This was a good, gritty football game. There's mistakes happening. There's good defense on display. I think that maybe Andy Reid makes the wrong decision here. And of course, the receiving core has a lot to think about after this game with this loss. But I do think you have to draw it back to that last drive by the Chiefs. It's just 4 plays, negative 15 yards, 30-second drive, and you can just watch the life sucked out of the team in that set of downs. And I mean, he drew up good plays, they just couldn't deliver. And I think after the third one, I would have opted to try something else. You only need 1 point, you got to go for something else. But they don't, and the Chiefs will start 0-1, and the Lions start 1-0. So I don't know if you had any thoughts on that last sequence by the Chiefs, but it puzzled me a little bit.
Yeah, I think because I mean even with the drop by Kadarius, because I don't remember how exactly far they would have gotten if he had caught that. But once you get to 4th and 20, why not just I I don't know. Like I really have no idea because you would have thought based on the way they went for it, you would have thought that it was like 20 seconds left in the game and they had no timeouts. This was before the 2-minute warning. Whenever it went incomplete, then it hit the 2-minute warning. And then they still have 3 timeouts, which they used on the last drive. But obviously, they couldn't do anything once they got the first down. So yeah, just punt the ball because you can trust your defense. You would assume that you can trust your defense considering they just got a turnover on downs. You got the ball at the 45. You have 2.5 minutes, 3 timeouts. If you don't get literally anything on this drive, you go backwards 20 something yards. You punt it. You assume that your defense can do the same thing because for the most part, the entire second half, except for one drive, the defense has been playing really well, getting them less than 50 yards on pretty much every single drive, and a lot of drives and getting nothing. So I feel like you should trust your defense there. Kick it deep, make the Lions get a first down to beat you, and if they don't, you get the ball back, and then you can still do that Patrick Mahomes magic there. So I don't know. I think that's just kind of the arrogance of the Chiefs, to be honest with you. And I'm not questioning Andy Reid. He's a Super Bowl champion, two-time Super Bowl champion now. But yeah, I think that was a bad decision. But that wasn't the whole game for him. And I think the overall ineptitude of the Chiefs on offense is really what led to their downfall. So it looks like Travis Kelsey's going to be coming back. It didn't seem like it was going to be something that's going to keep him out too long, but they absolutely need him. They might need to be making some moves at the deadline or something with some receivers.